welcome back to our Book Talk segment of the show. Great to welcome today, man. I've been looking forward to actually talking to for quite a while. We've emailed back and forth, but he has a brand new book out. He's a radio guy, and always great to talk to radio guys. And, of course, you've heard him on ABC Radio Network, has done celebrity interviews and Newsmaker interviews for many years. He also worked at the iconic great New York radio station, WNEW, 1130 New York. We'll talk about that as well. But the brand new book he has out is called 50 Years of Celebrity Chatter, or the time I interviewed a porn star naked. We'd welcome Bill Diehl to the show today. And Bill, it's been a long time since we've we've never gotten a chance to talk, but we've emailed back and forth. But great to have a chance to chat with you today. How are you?
I am doing fine. We're expecting a snowstorm up here. I'm sure that where you are, it'll be nice and sunny and warm.
It's going to be cold this weekend for Florida standards, in the 30s at night one day, but I'm glad I'm not living up there in the winter anymore. I don't miss the winter part.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the plug for my new book. This is actually my second book. I did another one in 2017.
Right.
Called Stay Tuned, My Life Behind the Mic. But this new one is kind of more, how shall I say it, a little more fun to do, because I went back to some old reel-to-reel tapes, audio tapes. You know what those are?
I remember them well.
And, yeah, and cassettes and things like that. And I had the actual interviews, and I could take quotes from them and give this book a little more, how shall I say, spice of life. And, of course, that secondary line in the opening of the book, the time I interviewed a porn star naked, I guess I can tell your audience, I had all my clothes on.
She didn't, though, in the picture, at least in the book.
That was Marilyn Chambers, and she was the young fresh-faced girl on the Ivory Snow box.
Right.
And then Procter & Gamble found out, oh, my God, she's a porn star. and needless to say, they were unhappy, and they fired her. And so my editor, I had now gone to the big network, ABC, and this is 1973, and my editor said, Bill, get down to the Pussycat Cinema in Times Square. Marilyn Chambers is doing interviews. So I got down there, and her manager met me at the door, and he said, I'll take you inside, and you could interview her. But when I got in there, she was stark naked. And a Reuters photographer took a picture of me. My wife always jokes I look like a deer in the headlights. Sitting there interviewing Marilyn Chambers all naked.
I actually met her down here in Sarasota, kind of in between radio work. I worked over at the airport at actually Hertz Rent-A-Car. This was in the early 90s. And she actually came in and rented a car. She came to the counter, and I saw the license and said, oh, that's who I think it is. And she actually rented a car from us. I guess she was on vacation down here. This was long after she quit the business, I guess.
Yeah, the interview was or the movie was Behind the Green Door.
Right, that's a famous movie she did, right?
Yeah, but that's what really turned Procter & Gamble off, and they were going to touch her now with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, she had kind of a sad ending, I know, too. But at that time, she looked like she was, she had a little daughter, I believe, with her at the time, and seemed like a happy family life, at least the few minutes I interacted at that point. But interesting person to interview, I imagine. Difficult to look at somebody with no clothes on and try and make believe you don't notice.
She died in her, I think, early 50s.
Yeah, right.
Living in a trailer park out in Santa Monica, California.
Yeah, sad ending.
That's why Marilyn Chambers opening.
Yeah. And just then, for the audience that's not aware, I mentioned before, of course, Bill worked in radio his whole career, but ABC Radio Network, and that's where we primarily did most of these interviews, right, on the network.
Yeah, by the time I had left WNEW, thank you for mentioning it, it was a great music and news station with some great disc jockeys, William B. Williams, Ted Brown, Jim Lowe. I think you interviewed Jim.
Had Jim on, yeah, he was great, yeah.
Yeah, and so...
Speaking of Behind the Green Door. That was one of his big hits, wasn't it?
In the early 70s, WNEW was starting to change their music format. They wanted what they hoped would be a bigger audience. And so they started playing what William B. Williams called chicken rock, and he hated it, but he played it anyway. But then I found out there was an opening at ABC, and I got the job in 1971. But by then, when I got to the network, I found out, my goodness, so they've got some programs I could bring in some big movie stars and do interviews. They had a thing called Meet the Newsmaker and Meet the Author. I was still doing newscasts, but this was just terrific. And so people, like Jerry Lewis came in, Robin Williams, Jane Fonda. I was like a kid in a toy shop here, having a great time. And it wasn't until the early 80s that they sent me out to cover the Academy Awards. And then I really went full-time covering celebrities. So that's where it really, started to happen.
Of all the movies you've done, do you have a favorite, by the way?
Yes, Nutty Professor.
That's it?
Well, it was it was 10 years out of my life. I wrote that in 10 years, if you can fathom that. The creative process is such that I put in as much love, as much energy, as much sweat, as much ability in everything that I try to do the best I can with everything. And then when you get old enough and look around, you see a lot of men never ever get it. Then you recognize the gift you have. I believe I'm a good man. I like what I've become in spite of what anyone will say. And I get stronger with the more heat I take. For some reason, I get stronger. I come back. I will never roll over and play dead. So for those that are trying, they might as well go to someone else.
Jerry Lewis turning 90. Reporting for Perspective, I'm Bill Diehl, ABC News.
Well, the great thing about the radio, I think, even television to some extent, but radio in particular, and even on my level where I primarily did it a little bit in New York, but mostly here in Sarasota and Tampa Bay. When you're on radio, you get to do these like press tours, at least on radio, where they'll offer you people that you don't expect to get sometimes, and it's a lot of fun that you don't expect. A lot of people I talked to, I didn't, we weren't a major market station, we were okay, but we got some big people just locally. So that's what's great about radio. I think celebrities are more inclined to do that than television at times. At least they feel more comfortable, right?
I think you're right. However, while I did some press tours, which sometimes you'd only be able to interview some of the big stars in a hotel room,
right?
I could get people to come right into the studio. That's when it was really wonderful and intimate.
Yeah. We usually got a lot of phone, obviously, but sometimes we'd get them in town. If they were in town, they'd come in studio. But now these interviews again aired across, I guess, the multiple of ABC networks at the time, right? I know you use them in your newscast, but also the networks had several shows. They would kind of cut them up and use selections, right?
Yeah, I had my own show called Bill Diehl Spotlight.
Right.
So while a few of these interviews might get a little brief mention in a newscast for some reason, the other interviews really went out in a 15-minute program called Meet the Newsmaker. So people like Tom Hanks came into the studio. I mentioned Robin Williams, Jerry Lewis. Tom Hanks, when he was a young actor. Can I tell a story here?
Sure.
Tom Hanks, when he was a young actor trying to get work, he told me, he said, my first gig was a knife rack movie. It was filmed on Staten Island. He said he got $800 to do it. The movie was called He Knows You're Alone. The story, the plot line, a woman in the kitchen sees a knife rack nearby. It's empty. It's missing. And I told Hank, I said, you had that Boy Next Door look. He said, yeah, but when the boy next door is Ted Bundy. Oh, man. But, Hank is still married to a lovely lady, Rita Wilson.
Right.
She once told me, she said, Tom is a force of nature. And he was just one of the sweetest guys I've ever interviewed. Loved this man.
I think he moved to Greece, though. At least that's what I've read. Have you heard that, or?
That what?
That he moved to the Greece.
Oh, I have not heard that.
I read that, I don't know, last year a couple times. that he did that. I don't know if it's true or not, but that's what I thought. So, which is, I think his wife is Greek heritage. Maybe that's why, or maybe just partially.
Yeah.
But I thought they said he moved there, full time, unless he's traveling to make a movie. But anyway, yeah,
maybe to get away from COVID too.
Probably could be, yeah. And just looking down the list, I mean, the book has an index at the back where you have all the people that you've talked to. I went through it just to kind of see if I've talked to how many I may have talked to over the years. I think I counted about 15 or 20 that I have of your list. But I'll have to live a long time to catch up to you.
There are hundreds of them.
Yes.
That book just has a few of them. One of them is, if you're talking about a female star, one of my favorite singers is Bernadette Peters.
Oh, I love her.
Yeah, she is a sweetheart. She was once on Saturday Night Live, and the NBC censors were really upset that she wanted to sing this song, When You're Making Love Alone.
Yeah.
Now, for your listeners, I can't believe they don't understand what that means, but it was about masturbation. And she did sing it despite the censors. But it was quite something that she got away
I saw her
with.
sing that on the Tonight Show. I think she sang it on Johnny Carson too. I remember hearing it. I think she sang it there too. Yeah. I wanted to get her on. She's been down to Sarasota several times over the years, but couldn't get her on. She's kind of a shy woman. She doesn't do a lot of interviews unless she's performing, right? On TV. I mean,
she did a nice one with me,
Yeah.
and she actually lived up the street from our ABC studios, and I did get to stop by her apartment once. And so she's just lovely. If you want to know what the worst interviews were, Harrison Ford, surprisingly, was not a great interview. Most of the answers were like, oh, yeah, right. Right. Thank you. Right. Very disappointing.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen him do like the brief interviews they do, and he seems kind of a one-word answer kind of a guy that I've seen. So yeah, that's not too surprising. Yeah, some actors are like that. They're not comfortable doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, but then you take somebody like Sean Connery, and the day I interviewed him, the CBS camera crew was doing a feature, A Day in the Life of Sean Connery. And as you probably know, his first film was Dr. No back in 1962. And so I asked him, I said, when they were casting, I heard Ian Fleming was thinking of Cary Grant to star. Connery confirmed that story, but he said that would have been so unrealistic. The budget back then was going to be $1 million for the movie. That wouldn't even have paid Cary Grant airfare.
That's right. I watched that not too long ago. I had not seen that movie in a while, and you look at it compared to the most recent James Bond, it is pretty mild as far as the the special effects and all that. There's really hardly any. It's really, and now it's just all chase scenes and special effects. So big difference.
He hated the hardware. That's the later movies,
Yeah, it's gone overboard now. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the new ones either. No.
Yep. There's a new TV series now on CNN. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's about Marilyn Monroe. And I never met her, Doug, but Tony Curtis, he was in Some Like It Hot with Marilyn Monroe. And I asked him about kissing Marilyn. This was a shocker, Doug. He said it was like kissing cement.
Yeah. I've heard him say it was like kissing Hitler. I've heard that quote from him.
Yeah, but it was fun to interview comedians,
I was going to say, let's talk about some of the comedians. They're usually fun. I had a chance to talk to Carl Reiner at one time, and I think he was 90 then, and he was sharp as ever. And talk about some of the favorite comedians you've talked to.
Yeah, I interviewed Mel Brooks and George Burns a couple of times. Mel, of course, the comedian, and but Brooks is, believe it or not, 95 now, and still working. My wife wrote a book about the old Horn and Hardart automat. Remember that?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, and they are doing a documentary now on the automat coming out next month. My wife is in it, but the big star is Mel Brooks. He not only wrote an Automat song, but he is singing in the film. It will eventually, he sings an Automat song. It will eventually be on television, the movie, but at first only in theaters. So we'll have to wait for that.
I remember the tail end of them as a kid. I remember going to Horn and Hardart. I think there were still some around then. My dad or mom would take me in. So I guess they went away, late 60s, early 70s, right?
Yep. Rodney Dangerfield, this is a funny story, Doug. He lived near me on Manhattan's Upper East Side, and he had a dog, Pino, and in his bathrobe, he used to walk his dog out on the sidewalk. And neighbors would, see him. It was just a regular thing for him. Now, I had to interview him at his apartment, and there is a photo of him in his bathrobe in my book. But we were just a one-on-one, so there was no one to take a picture with him. But I did try to get a photo with him in the bathrobe. And he loved to tell dog jokes. He had a little nightclub nearby on the Upper East Side, Dangerfield.
Just closed, I heard, about a year ago, right? Finally closed, I think.
Yeah, it's closed now.
Yeah.
But in his routine, he would use the dog jokes. One that I always loved. With my dog, he said, I get no respect. He keeps barking at the door. He doesn't want to leave. He wants me to leave.
I was going to say, how was he? Because whenever he went on Tonight Show, and he was brilliant on that, the panel part would be just more of his act, which was great. But you never really got a chance to hear Rodney talk, kind of introspectively. Did you get any of that from him when you talked to him?
No, I didn't get an awful lot out of him.
Yeah.
You mean as far as just a one-on-one?
Yeah, nobody's ever heard it. I just wondered, because he was kind of a sad man from what you read off stage, or at least a quiet man. But you never heard much about him that he talked about.
Yeah, he was very quiet when I did the interview. Robin Williams, it's a sad story, he took his own life at the end. But he was such a funny man. There was a comedy club up the street here on the east side called Catch a Rising Star. And so I went over there, met his manager, and I gave him my business card. And I said, I'd really like to interview Robin Williams. And he said, well, I don't know. He said, he's pretty busy. But he said, give me your card. And I went back to the newsroom at ABC. And the next day, Doug, the phone rings. Hi, Bill Diehl? Yep. Robin Williams here. You still want to do that interview? I said, of course. He said, I'll be right over.
Wow.
Well, that was just such a pleasure, to interview him. Love that man.
Back in 1982, I was hosting my own show on ABC. At the end of the interview, I asked Robin if he would do a couple of promos for me. Here's how it went.
Hello, this is Robin Williams, and I'll be this week's guest on Bill Diehl Spotlight. I hope you'll join us right here on this ABC station. Bill Diehl? Big deal. Come on now. Join us. Hey, call me. We'll have breakfast, lunch, dinner. Please hold. Thank you. Howdy. This is Robin Williams. I hope you'll be listening for Bill Diehl Spotlight right here on this ABC station. Billy Bob Joe Jean, Carl Joe Jeff. Squeal! Come on now, Betty. Get in the car. We're going to drive home.
The great Robin Williams, 1982. Reporting for Perspective, I'm Bill Diehl, ABC News.
I think everybody that you read about said he was a nice man. He was, always on, though, right? I know other comedians sometimes thought he stole their jokes, but I think he just had that kind of mind that sucked everything up, and it just came out whenever he went on stage. He was that type of performer.
Yeah, that's kind of the story, I think. You've heard stories like that with a lot of comedians. They were not the nicest people at all. Some of them, they could be really mean-spirited when they were not doing a show or something like that. Let's see, Woody Allen, I met him a few times, interviewed him a few times. One question I did ask him, Doug, I said, what about your legacy? And Allen, who's now, I think, 86, still married, by the way, to Sue Yee.
That's right.
He joked about my question. He said, do you think Shakespeare cared about his legacy?
I know when you look back at all that scandal, that was over 30 years ago now, and they're still married. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I interviewed some, besides Bernadette Peters, I did interview some big singers. I never got to interview Bing Crosby or Frank Sinatra.
Right.
Met Sinatra once and shook his hand. But I interviewed Catherine Crosby. This is a strange story. That was his last wife. And so she told me, she said, Bing had a thing for 19-year-olds. I said, what? When they married, he was more than 30 years her senior. But she said Bing wanted her to be an at-home mother. And so when she started to do some acting, he was impossible, she said. She said, I destroyed a lot of furniture over those arguments.
About Bing Crosby, you hear some stories that he was kind of difficult to get close to. Even the people that loved him, like Rosemary Clooney, I've heard her in interviews say that. He was a nice man, but very off-camera, just kind of kept to himself, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he was the greatest father to some of his kids. So they didn't always have a great relationship.
Yeah, the first family, the first four kids did not. Yeah, yep. I guess the second family not better. I would hope. I think they were better. Yeah.
And there's Billy Crystal. Interviewed him a few times.
Long Island guy. He once
did a show in Moscow, Doug. They loved it, and he got lots of applause. And after he finished, he said, "Are there any more like you?" He said, "There are plenty." He did the opening of his act in Russian, so that was pretty cool.
I remember seeing that. Yeah, that special he did. Right, he went over there, and but I didn't remember until I read your book that he actually did the first part in Russian. But yeah, great talent. Yeah, and I just wanted.
Diller, how about Phyllis Diller?
Oh yeah, I was going to say Phyllis Diller, another classic comedian. Seemed like a nice woman.
Yeah, she was nice. They're all nice, when you're with them in those certain circumstances. They're promoting something usually.
Sure.
And so most of these interviews were like that. Diller once said, "I've had 2 facelifts. If I have another one, it'll be by cesarean."
Yeah, right. A lot of people didn't realize that she was a great piano player, too. I didn't know that till later on in her career, but she was a very talented piano player.
Yeah. It's a funny Dick Cavett story. When Dick was just starting out in his career, he had some jokes. And so in those days, you could walk into NBC. There was hardly any security. But if you knew where someone was, you could walk in. So he walked in and had a bunch of jokes in his hands, and he sees Jack Parr coming down a hallway. And he tells Parr, he says, "Hey, I've got some good jokes for you." And Parr said, "Yeah, fine, I'll take them, thank you." And that night on the Tonight Show, Cavett was astounded when Jack Parr read one of his jokes. Back in that period, pirates were taking over cruise ships and hijacking them. And so Parr said on the show, he said, "There's this, thing going on now with pirates and taking over cruise ships." He said, "Can't you just see it?" He says, over the loudspeaker system, "This is your pirate speaking."
I was going to say, Bill Diehl is our guest, and the book is 50 Years of Celebrity Chatter, but I don't think anybody else, maybe with the exception of one man you interviewed too, who we lost about a year ago, Larry King, did as many celebrity interviews, or just interviews in general, as you did, and you talked to him. I had a chance to talk to him once. What was he like?
Yeah, Larry King, a lot of people used to complain to him that he, did softball questions to all of his guests. But darn it, he sure got to interview some of the biggies. There's no doubt about it. And but in an interview, he wasn't that good. Often, some of these people you think are going to be, terrific to talk to, they're not that good. But, he wasn't, gone for too long, but how many marriages? He had about 3 or 4, I think.
I think the count was around 8. When he died, I think they said it was about 8. One he married twice, I know that. So maybe it was seven.
I
Seven.
I once asked him if he remembered. He said, well, he said, I think he says I'd left a mark, but I'm an agnostic, he said. I'm not sure what's coming. I just love the business I'm in, you know. But he died in 2021.
I think it was about a year ago, right? Right.
Yeah.
Well, that type of radio that he did, and of course the type of radio you did, Bill, unfortunately is almost extinct. That traditional kind of talk radio interview type of shows. You find them on podcasts now, but good luck finding that on the airwaves anywhere anymore, right?
That's true. Yeah. By the way, I got some lovely blurbs for the book. If you look at the back page, Barbara Walters was really, really nice. Leonard Moulton, the film critic, gave me some nice comments. Walters, she began her career on the Today Show back in the early 60s.
Right.
And she was the daughter of nightclub owner Lou Walters. But Barbara was not always the best interview. I got to know her quite well. But I'll tell you one quick story. Barbara once started out in a nice interview. And then she said to me, Bill, I think I can do it better the second time. So stop the tape. Let's do it again. But she was precise. I mean, you could tell she wanted to do it her way. That was Barbara. She's 92 now.
Yeah. And not doing very well, I understand. But, boy, she had a great career, though. Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. She's not in the best of health.
Yeah. Well, before we wrap up, Bill, and again, we want people to get the book, 50 Years of Celebrity Chatter is the name of the book, or The Time I Interviewed a Porn Star Naked, but we briefly talked about it before, WNEW, and I've had a chance, like we said down here, to talk to a couple people that have been on it. Of course, Jim Lowe and our mutual friend Mike Eisdrow, and now you. It's one of those stations that kind of everybody remembers that grew up listening to it, like myself. But sadly, that's another thing that's gone. That type of radio, that music and news and talk. Yeah,
it's not the radio you and I grew up with, But we'll always have WNEW, one of the great stations. You got any old station breaks? You can play.
There's only one WNEW 1130 in New York.
Boy, when I do some of those shows that plays that kind of music, I do a podcast with it. I found a couple, actually, WNEW jingles, so I throw those in just to kind of, bring those memories back. But, boy, what a great time that was, and you had a chance to be part of that, but we'll always have it in our memories, I guess.
Anytime, any place, any
W. That's right. Well, Bill, a real pleasure. I know I kept you longer than I said, but we could talk for hours on this, and we want people to get this book, 50 Years of Celebrity Chatter, all the great interviews that you've done, kind of little vignettes along the way, and just out, I guess. Where's the best place people can get it? I guess all those usual spots, right?
The book is on Amazon, and I think it's like $12.95. Won't set you back a lot. And there's an ebook for $7.95 if you like the ebooks. So it's out there, and it's a nice little book. I had a great time doing it.
I'm Stan Brock. 30 years ago, I formed Remote Area Medical to help people overseas. But then we found generations of families in America isolated by poverty from the health care they need. Together, we can take dental, vision, and medical help to 1 million adults and their kids, right here at home in the United States of America.